Hi, everybody. My name is Carl Darden, and I'd like to welcome and thank all of you for joining us today on Navy Sports Central. I'm your host, and this is the official podcast of the Navy Sports Nation, where we take a deeper dive into Navy sports. In this episode, we're going to get to know one of the Naval Academy's outstanding young athletes who has already made a great impact in just his first year of competition. I'll give you some background first, and then we'll find out more in our deep dive segment. We'll also have our question of the day. Things are kind of quiet around the yard when it comes to Navy sports, but August will be here before you know it. In the meantime, you can spend the next 45 minutes or so with me. You'll have a chance to learn about someone who may not have shown up on your radar yet, but I'm fairly certain you'll be hearing all about him over the next 3 years. So stay with us. All right, it's great to have you with us here on another episode of Navy Sports Central. It is officially summer, which of course means triple-digit heat practically every day of the week here in the Arizona desert. In any case, whether this is your first visit or you're a regular listener, thanks for taking the time. So obviously the brigade is scattered all over the place going through their summer training, and there are not going to be any sports in the yard for at least another couple of months. But that doesn't mean we need to wait until August to learn more about some of these terrific athletes who compete here at the Naval Academy, and that's what we're going to do today. To get things started, I'll need to take you back to last fall. It was Saturday, October 8th, and the Navy football team was playing Tulsa at home. The Mids had the ball, and they were leading 3-0 with just over 2.5 minutes left in the first quarter. It was 1st and 10 on their own 30-yard line following a Golden Hurricanes punt. Navy quarterback Ty Lavatai took the snap, faked the ball to fullback Dabo Fofana, and headed to his left. At the same time, the receiver lined up on the left side turned immediately and broke to his right into the backfield. Lavatai pitched him the ball on the reverse. Initially, the play didn't look like it was going to pick up any positive yardage because when he got the ball, the receiver was 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage, with the safety just a couple of yards away ready to take him down for a loss. Then, the receiver threw in a quick stutter step at the Tulsa defender, freezing him for just a fraction of a second. And that's all he needed to beat him to the edge and turn upfield. Once he got north and south, it was all over. It was almost like he had a small turbine engine inside of him someplace because he just took off, picked up 2 excellent blocks along the way, and sprinted untouched into the end zone for a 70-yard touchdown. The extra point made it 10-0, and the Mids went on to win the game easily, 53-21. My first thought when I saw that Navy receiver blowing by everybody was, man, that guy's got sprinter speed. I didn't even know who he was. In fact, that was the first time I'd ever seen him on the field in those first 5 games. And it turns out that the play where he scored that touchdown was the first time he'd gotten his hands on the ball as a college player. Yeah, you heard me correctly. He had 0 touches up until that point. He was part of the class of 2026 that arrived in Annapolis just a couple of months before. And I was right. He was a sprinter. And his name was Nathan Kent. He came to the academy from Rockland, California, where he competed in both track and football. Once he got to the yard, he had to get the green light to continue competing in both sports. To my knowledge, Kent is one of only 2 football players who play that second sport. The other, as most of you know, is Xavier Arline. So after football was over, Kent moved right into the indoor track season, running the 200 and the 400 meters. He also ran the 4x400 meter relay. After working himself back into sprinter shape, Kent posted a second-place finish in the 400 meters to help the Mids win another star against Army. That was back in February. And then he followed that up 3 weeks later by posting a second and third-place finish in the 2 and 400 meters at the Patriot League Championships. But his best race came in the 4x400 meter relay, where he and his teammates finished first and set a meet record in the process. The Mids won the Patriot League title for the 5th straight year. But Kent was just getting started. During the outdoor season, he took things to an even higher level. He won the 200 meters against Army and ran a strong second leg of the 4x400 meter relay to help the Mids take first there. They crushed the Black Knights 126-77. At the Outdoor Patriot League Championships, Kent again won the 200 meters and finished second in the 400, and he also helped the 4x400 meter relay team to another win. On top of that, he pulled in a few more points by running the 4x100 meter relay, where the team took second. And by the way, that time was the 8th best in program history. And speaking of program records, Kent has already cracked the top 10 in both the 200 and 400 indoors. His best 200 time is, I think, good for 10th right now. And then the 400 puts him in 9th place. That meet record he and his teammates set in the 4x400 is also a program record. Outdoors, Kent has the 10th best time in the 400 and the overall top time with his teammates in the 4x400 meter relay. Now, keep in mind he did all of this during his first year of competition, so assuming he stays healthy, there's no telling what kind of impact Nathan Kent can have on the program by the time he graduates. At some point, I hope to sit down and chat with him, but until then, I did manage to track down someone who knows Kent pretty well. So we're going to step away briefly, and when we come back, we'll learn more about this terrific athlete and how he wound up at the Naval Academy. Okay, we are ready for our deep dive segment, and our guest today is someone who's a pretty accomplished athlete herself. She competed in both cross country and track and field while in college, and she was an All-American in the 4x400 meter relay. After earning her degree, she went to work for Hewlett-Packard for over 24 years, and currently she works as a project manager for SMA Solar Technology, a company that provides all kinds of products from monitoring devices to inverters and power stations to support the growing demand for solar power. But the reason she's here with me today is because she is Nathan Kent's mom. So I'm very happy to welcome Maura Kent to the show. All right, Maura, thanks so much for joining us on Navy Sports Central. Really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you. It's fun to be here.
So there are several topics I want to discuss with you today, starting with Nathan's initial interest in track all the way through to his arrival at the Naval Academy. But first, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. I remember reading from Nathan's bio that you competed in track and field as well. So I was wondering if you could share some of that experience with us.
Sure, yeah. Went to Azusa Pacific University. It's a Christian college in Southern California. I went on an academic and athletic scholarship, not a full ride like the Naval Academy, but it was fun. I met some really great people. I actually went back and looked at the record board because it's been quite a few years since I went there. And I was excited to find out I still was on the record board. Not as fast as these ladies are now at the Academy. Those girls are blazing. But it was really fun to see. I still hit the record board. My freshman year, the men's team won nationals in track and field. That's such an amazing experience as a school to win nationals at that level of an event. And they went on to win nationals all 4 years we were there. Had athletes on our team like Christian Okoye. We called him Cho-Cho. You might have known him as a Nigerian Nightmare when he competed for the Kansas City Chiefs. We had David Johnson. He represented the USA in the Olympics in the decathlon. Innocent Egbunike. He was on the Nigerian Olympic team. He was a 400-meter runner. They were just guys on the team. You know, when you're a student athlete, they're just the people you compete with. You have no idea where life is going to take you afterwards. It was a really great experience.
Right. So what events did you compete in?
I was the 400 up to the 1500. And in my senior year, my coach, you know the drill, we need points, had me run the 3000. I actually broke the school record, and that's what I'm still on the record board for, is that 3000 race, which kind of blows my mind.
Wow. Now, was that the 3,000 meter run, or was it the steeplechase event?
The 3,000. I thought I was decent. I look at the girls' times now. So my 3,000 time was 9:58. My favorite event was the 800 in high school. That's what I went to the state meet in high school. The 1,500 is what I did more of in college.
Okay. All right. So when did Nathan first develop an interest in track and field?
My husband and I, we met in college as track athletes. And when we were pregnant with Nathan, we decided to go ahead and start a youth track club. So he grew up not knowing anything but youth track. I mean, there were other sports, but one of the sports we had was cross country. And you have to have 5 kids on a team. And the youngest age group are 7 and 8 year olds. They used to be called sub-bantams. They don't call them that anymore. And we needed that 5th runner. And he was 3. And he would come to practice and he would train with the kids and, just have a good time. And so one meet, my husband would run with him. One meet, I would run with him. He actually ran. He was number 5 guy. And he ran the 2000 in 14:34 as a 3-year-old.
Wow.
Then he went on and he joined our track team. They used to do all-comers. They don't seem to have as many all-comers now. But my husband would run backwards in front of him holding a soda or something. And he would run down after the 50-meter chase him to get his soda. And then when he was 7, he went to the USA Track and Field Youth Nationals. It was in South Carolina. He went in 2 events. He made All-American in both. He was 2nd in the turbo javelin. He threw it as a 7-year-old 57 feet and 11 inches. He ran the 800 meters, and he ran it in 2:50, which isn't bad for 7 years old.
Yeah.
We got home, he said, I'm done with track. I am ready to go do something else. And so he literally didn't run again until 8th grade. He went into baseball and did soccer and did a lot of other sports.
Okay. So he had that big gap there until eighth grade. So I guess the next question is specific to track anyway. When did you first get the sense that he had the talent to take it beyond high school?
So when kindergarten through seventh grade, we had him in a small charter school, private school. And when he was on his club sports teams, he would hear how exciting it was to be on your school team in seventh grade. And he pitched the battle and all the reasons why we need to pull him out of the charter school for eighth grade, put him in the regular public school and go for it. So we went ahead and pulled him out, let him do the local public school for eighth grade so we could do sports teams. And we thought it'd also be a good introduction to high school before he went into the larger public high school. The middle school team, they had all sports. It was a large middle school. And during that time, he was also on a club football team, which is a very good football team. So we thought he could do basketball and maybe just track. The problem was when he got into PE in eighth grade, he was beating all the cross-country runners. So the coach said, hey, how about if I let you only come to a couple practices, come to the meets, and then we'll work it around your football, and you can do cross-country. He ended up being the number one runner on his school team. They won the championships. He was number 2 overall, and he was kind of done with cross-country after that. That was a little too far for his fun. But then he did basketball, and then he did track. And in track, he was setting school records for his middle school team. And so, of course, my husband and I are like, yes, maybe he's going to get the love for it again. And so as we were preparing for high school, because now my husband was a high school track coach, but across town in the next town over. So we'd have to get an interdistrict transfer. Got him into that school, and he was going to do football, basketball, and track. That lasted 1 year. That was a little much at that level. So he dropped basketball, just went into track. But COVID was not good to athletes in his generation. So his sophomore year, there was no season. His junior year in California, they combined all sports, fall, winter, and spring into one season, all in the spring season. So he was trying to do a varsity football team and a varsity track team in the same season his junior year, and that was difficult. But he kept pursuing through it. And then in 12th grade, he joined in again, was doing all sports separately, football, then track, but pulled his hamstring at the beginning of his track season. But still pushed through it, and it was amazing to see how he persevered.
Okay. All right. Wow.
He just kept excelling at every level he was in.
Yeah. It sounds like, I got to tell you, and I'm with you right there on the impact of COVID on the kids that are at that age. I got a son who's 19, and he darn near had his basketball season canceled his senior year because of that. And luckily it all worked out. So obviously you guys gave him a tremendous amount of support. And besides the parental support, invariably there's always maybe a coach that kind of comes to the forefront. And obviously your husband, coached him for a little bit when he was much, much younger. But I was wondering if there's anyone in particular that comes to mind who had a definitive impact on Nathan as a coach.
As we know from any athlete that's successful, it takes a village.
Right.
The Naval Academy kids are no different. They didn't get there because they had great coaches or they had a great mom and dad. It was that village. And I think about that. We had neighbors like Tom Olay and Jenny Adams that just have poured into him in different ways. Jenny was a swim instructor, and she would help him with swimming on the off season and doing that kind of training. Tom would research things. While Nathan's at the academy, I'll get links from him about stuff. Hey, look at this. Check this out. When Nathan wanted to be a scuba diver, because that was the path he's going in the Naval Academy, another guy from our Bible study, Rusty Sander, jumped in and helped him learn to scuba dive. We had people that would buy him books, would get training videos, would focus on his areas of interest. It's phenomenal, the people that would engage. And when you think about his coaches, in basketball, he had a YBA coach named Coach Chris Collins, who was he was tough. A lot of people struggled because he was hard, but he was hard with love. And he held those kids accountable and to a high level of accountability. In his youth Rockland Thunder football team, Coach Buccialetto and Coach Brock O'Haron really introduced him to what football was about and really taught him really strongly about fundamentals, team play, and engagement. And when he got to high school, his Rockland High School coach, Coach Adams and Coach Herndon, they took it to the next level. And he was blessed not only with the coaches, but his teammates and their parents. It really was a family. And I'm starting to see that with the Naval Academy too. We can't all be at the same game. Often we can't be at any of the games because it's expensive to get out there. But everyone helps each other. People take pictures and say, hey, I saw this. Hey, I heard that. And that's what's amazing. It's that village of everyone that pours into these kids that makes them successful.
Yeah, that's probably the most in-depth level of support I've heard in all my conversations with the parents. I mean, you always hear about the coaches, but very rarely do people talk about even the level of engagement of the neighbors. That's pretty cool. So when did Nathan first kind of get that exposure to the Naval Academy? When did that first happen?
Nathan, going into middle school, announced he wanted to go to a military academy in San Diego. And I was like, you are out of your mind. You're my last child. You are not going that far away. But he knew a path he wanted to go down. He joined the Sea Cadets in middle school and just moved his way up through there. Sea Cadets, the Sacramento Division of Sea Cadets, were phenomenal. They had great leadership at that time. They did transition. I'm not saying the leadership now isn't good. It's just different people than who he was there then. But they offered to him opportunities that I didn't even know existed. Nathan would spend summers literally traveling from 2 weeks here, and then go to the next place, 2 weeks there. And I'm like, okay, I'm letting my child fly all over, but it was his dream. And he knew at a very young age what he wanted to do. And like I said, some of these neighbors, Leota Haynes, who was his tutor when he was younger, she would buy him college textbooks in the area of his interest as fun reading books for Christmas presents. He loved it. I mean, that wouldn't be what I wanted for Christmas when I was in high school. They listened to what his dream was, and he knew where he was going after. And the Sea Cadets provided a way for him to chase after that in a way that I didn't even know was available. I didn't know that opportunity existed. So that really helped him go forward in the light that way he was going after.
Wow. Okay, cool. So now let's continue with that story and talk about when the Naval Academy first showed up on Nathan's radar screen.
The Naval Academy, there was a couple trainings he'd went to where the instructors in the training had gone through the academy and they had made mention of it. And he was interested, but only to a degree. We actually had a bit of a battle on our hands. Nathan wanted to enlist. Nathan was content with enlisting. He knew his path he wanted to go down, and he knew he'd get right into that career path by enlisting. The Naval Academy was a bit of a 4-year roadblock. It was going to delay him being able to get to where he wanted to go. And as a parent, sometimes you can say something over and over again, and then someone else can come in and say that same thing. It's like, what a great idea. Yeah, you know how that works. So Nathan was always open to going to college, and the Naval Academy went to any college. It was Naval Academy. West Point was a strong second. He really liked Princeton. He liked what the track coach there was offering to him. But it was the people outside of mom and dad that spoke into his life that got him interested in the Naval Academy. Because again, he knew where he was going to go, and he didn't have to go to college to do it. It was other people that had that experience, like that could talk to him. I think being a collegiate athlete is like pretty doggone amazing. And I wish everyone who's an athlete could have that chance. I know not everyone can, but if you can, I say go for it. And I wanted him to have that. And he had the grades. I knew he could do it. And I told him, I said, when you get to that academy, Nathan, you're going to be with 1,000+ kids who are all used to being number one in their team, number one in activities. And 50% of you are going to be in the bottom of your class on day one. I said, that could be you. Are you ready for that? How are you going to handle that? And if it's not you, how are you going to be with those other 50% and help them get them feeling accepted in what they need to do? And he just seemed to be cut from the cloth that fits that environment. And in the Sea Cadets, there were many people there. Most of them were enlisted. They weren't necessarily through the Naval Academy, but they could speak into his life in a way I could not. And they could provide opportunities. They could bring guest speakers in. They could, hey, why don't you go to dinner here and meet that person? That's what really helped. And then it was the actual the visits, the engagement, the talking to people that made a difference for him as well.
Very good. And I understand, and not speaking from experience here, because I when I was appointed to the Naval Academy, I never even made it to the campus.
Oh.
So for me, it was just, I lived in Colorado at the time. I went to high school in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
But with me, it was the same sort of driven thing, to the point where I didn't even need to see the campus to go. But I understand that for some people who are still in that decision-making process, it is that visit to the campus that usually is the difference maker, because of the environment that they see, and the interactions and the engagements that they have with the midshipmen that are there. It is such a huge selling point. So that's good to hear. The next question I have is, you being in Alabama, you mentioned that the support structure is so good because you can't always make it to the meets and stuff like that. How many opportunities did you have to see Nathan this year?
I went to, I think, 3 or 4 football games, and then I was able to get to what I did. There's a Sacramento family that has a condo from when their son used to go to the campus. He's graduated, and they only rent it out to Sacramento Parent Club families at a very reasonable rate. So I thought, I'll book 2 weekends that are both home track meets, and then I'll just work the days in between, because I work remotely. I can work from anywhere. It seemed like a great idea, except I got there for the first meet, and his coach had decided Nathan wasn't going to compete.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, it's like, when you consider the cost of your airfare, your place you're staying, your food, like, oh, this is okay. But at the end of the day, I get to see him compete. And then the second meet of that weekend, he was competing. And the same thing, I came for outdoor, doing the same thing. Because obviously, a coach doesn't compete the child because mom and dad happen to be in the stands. They don't even care if you come. It's a great yay-hoo, but they're not, that doesn't play into it. So
That's funny.
Had the same thing for the outdoor track. I booked 2 back-to-back weekends, stayed there for the weekend between, and he didn't compete the first weekend. That just makes it that much more enjoyable when you get to see the second one. Right. If you are a track and field parent, you are used to sitting in the stands for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, and your kid maybe races for 10 seconds here, and 7 or 8 hours they race maybe for 25, 30 seconds later. You might be lucky and they're a distance runner, and you get a little bit longer race. So you love watching everybody. And that's the beauty of the track and field community. Yeah. It's never just about your kid. It's about everyone on the track. And whether they're first or last, everyone is standing and clapping and engaging. And whether your team, the other team, everyone cheers. And that's what I really love about track. It is truly a community sport.
Yeah, I get your point about just being caught up and just cheering for everybody, because I'm the same way. I mean, I don't, my favorite events are the sprints, but I know enough about middle and long distance, and I'm curious enough about the field events just to kind of watch the different techniques and how you throw the shot and the disc and all that kind of stuff. And of course, I was right there at the, I was watching the ESPN Plus feed when Braden Presser was competing at the NCAAs, and that was amazing. I mean, it was really cool to see when he uncorked his second throw, because he fouled on the first one, but when he uncorked the second throw and put him up to like third, I said, okay, this guy, he may not win, but he's going to be top 10, top 5 easy, And of course, he came out 6th with a PR. So, you can't beat that.
And the all-time best throw record in the Naval Academy. So you can't, great.
All right. So obviously you're a big supporter of the team, and to the point where you have a Facebook page, group page for the parents. Did you start that, or was it something you kind of just joined?
Oh, so it's not my page. Yeah, it is. It's been going on for I don't know how long, but it definitely is pre-existing me. It's the USNA. So I believe every sports team at the academy has their own Facebook account.
Got it.
And this one is about track and field. So it's the Navy Track and Field Fans Facebook account. You have to be associated somehow with the Navy or a family friend to get, access. It is a closed account. But I love it because they take so much time to promote the kids. And you have Navy Sports, which is awesome. They write great articles. They create these mini videos. But they go out over on the Naval Academy site. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that people necessarily know to go check them out there. So what we do is we link them over to the Facebook account. There's a student at the school. His name is Connor Kinnaman. He's making these action videos, and then they get posted on there. You have parents, because Most of us don't live right near Maryland. We
Right.
can't get to every meet, or, well, heaven forbid all the meets even be in Maryland. Wherever they are, we can't get there. And so, but usually there's one or two mom or dads or more, and they'll take pictures and they'll bless the rest of the team with those pictures and they'll upload them. And the beauty of the Facebook page is it allows that one-stop shopping, if you will. So it's kind of like when your kids go to Plead Summer, like Find Your Waldo. It's the same kind of thing. They've taken all these pictures at a track meet, and you're like, where's my kids' event? And it's wonderful. It's just delightful to see that. You are right. I have been involved with track and field for a long time. Like I said earlier, my husband and I run a youth track club. We've been doing it for over 19 years. And in doing so, I learned that the parents like to see stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
They need to know, where's the link to watch it on TV? Where do I go for the best whatever? And if there's PRs, it's, not everyone's going to be the top. There's 175 kids on that team. Not everyone's going to be first place.
Yeah.
But if you got a PR is a PR. That's awesome. So to be able to, when time allows, to research those and promote those and get everyone a little bit of recognition, that's what's so cool about that site. I happen to be one of the administrators. There are several folks that are putting that extra time in to making a better experience for all. I really need to give a shout out to Austin Balin. He's the director of track and field operations. There were times I didn't know the answer, or I knew something was coming up and I couldn't find it in my research. And he was so willing to receive an email and respond often within a day. And I really appreciate that he fed in to that Facebook page the details we needed, so all the parents that were watching and the fans that had moved on but still cared about track and field could be engaged.
Right.
Because most track meets are not live. You don't get to watch them like you do the football games.
That's true.
So you spend the day watching a website that keeps putting up results, looking for your baby to see, how did they do? How did they compare? And so being able to pull those key points out and putting them on the Facebook account made it that much funner for everybody.
Right. And for all the listeners out there, I am a member of that group, and it's very active. Maura and the other administrators do a great job of keeping everybody dialed in. And I really like the photos because I'm into sports photography myself. So a nice job helping all the group members stay connected. Okay, tell you what, we're going to go ahead and take a short break, but stay close because we'll be continuing our conversation with Maura Kent when we come back. All right, thanks for staying with us here on Navy Sports Central. Carl Darden here with you. And today we are joined by Maura Kent, who is the mother of Navy sprinter and wide receiver Nathan Kent. We're going to go ahead and continue learning more about him in a minute. But before we do that, Maura, I wanted to take a little time as a way of saying thank you for sitting down and talking with me to let you speak about some of the things that are important to you. So fire away. The mic is yours.
I am a Christian. I believe that Jesus Christ was the Son of God. And as such, I believe we need to be doers of his word and not just hearers of his word.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that as a Christian, I can't just sit back, that I need to be looking for how can I be a difference maker in my community, whether it is providing space in my home. Nathan's senior year in high school, we had two different families who moved out of California, because that seems to be what people do these days. They move out of California, but their sons were seniors, or going to be seniors. And they had just lost their sophomore and junior year because of COVID. And they needed a place for their kids to stay. And they asked, can they stay at our house? And that meant we did have an extra bedroom, but when the second one came, we didn't have any more bedrooms. Nathan actually opened up his bedroom and we snuggled in a twin bed. This kid was 6'3", 6'5". His feet hung off the end of the bed. You had to walk sideways to scooch between the two beds. Oh, we had to pull the dressers out and just put two open-faced bookshelves as dressers. But it's making yourself available to be a difference maker for the people in your world. I can't be okay with just being about myself. It can't just be about my family. It's what are the talents God has given me and how can I use those for those around me? And whether it's he gave me a house, okay, it's not my house, it's his house. So how can I use it to bless others? If I have money, how can I use that to help others, that need it? Because it's not about me.
Right.
It has to be about how is God going to use the skills he's given me, the talents and the resources to bless and bring others to know him. It's at the end of the game, how to get others to know about Jesus Christ.
All right. That was well said. Okay, let's go ahead and continue. Maura, I was wondering if you could share with me a particular situation in Nathan's track career that he had to deal with that made you especially proud. I'm sure there has to be a boatload of proud moments up to this point. And I'm not going to ask you, okay, which one is the one that stands out most, because there's a bunch of them. But I'm just asking you to share one with us of the many that I'm sure there are. And it could be from a time when he was younger, or maybe it just happened recently.
One that stands out for me is actually in his senior year of high school. So as I mentioned earlier, Nathan was injured at the beginning of the senior year. He pulled his hamstring, and he did everything he could. He was going to, there's all these kind of like one-off personal trainers that took that extra effort with him. Like, what do you got to lose, right? Let's go try it. The school had an athletic trainer that she was phenomenal. She really let Nathan, he could come into her class before school, after school, during lunch, and she would have stuff there that he could do to help him with his hamstring and other things that he needed to keep himself in shape. Come to the end of the year, he really didn't compete much his senior year. And to get to state in California is a lot of rounds. It's 3 weeks of trial, final. It's tough to get to state. And even state, there's trials and finals. Well, he went to trials, and for the very first round, which is the league level, in the open 4 and the 4x4, and advanced in both. But then he had to really have that decision making. Can I, on the season I've had and with the hamstring I've had, make it all the way doing 4 all-out 400 meters every week and get to state? Or do I need to pick my open 400 or the 4x4? Open 400, pretty much guaranteed because you're dependent on yourself. 4x4, you're hoping the other 3 guys on a team are going to pull their weight. They're not going to have a fight with their girlfriend or do whatever, and not have their head in the game and not be able to be where they need to be. He went with a 4x4. He says, I want to do this with my teammates. He goes, I want us to do it together. And they went all the way to state, and they were setting school records along the way. They took 4th overall at the state finals. And that's what, as a mom, I love seeing my son succeed, but I love that he wanted to do it collectively.
Right.
That he wanted to do it with his team, and it wasn't just about himself. So to me, that was, for me, a standout moment, and watching how my son was taking his approach to athletics.
Wow, that's a great story. Yeah, and I can see how that would make you proud, because he's definitely putting others in front of himself. That's got to make you feel pretty good. One of the questions I also wanted to check in with you on is, based on the journey that you and your husband have had with Nathan as he pursues a college athletic career, what kind of advice would you give other parents who have sons or daughters pursuing track and field in high school that have that potential to get to the next level? What would you tell them to kind of help them get to that goal, but also to stay grounded along the way?
That's a really good question. Number one was, don't single sport your kid. I've heard it over and over again. Kids that start single sporting by the time they get to high school, when they get to college, they're burned out. They just don't want to do stuff. And we were blessed to have a lot of coaches call. We had a lot of coaches coming to our house from the colleges. And it opened the door to me to see things I never even really thought about. Our other kids, not all went to college, but those that didn't go as athletes. And so he was our only one that actually went as an athlete to college. And it's been a smidgen of a few years since I went to college, so I know it's different from back in my day. But what I observed from him, and in running the track team and seeing so many of our own kids from our club team going off to college and working with those families, you have to keep your options open, and you have to keep trying stuff. I really believe you have to make friends with your competitors. If you're out there egotistic, I'm number one, that's seen, that's picked up. You have to be available to those in your community, and networking management. Not like you and I would use it for work. It's not about getting a job. What I saw, Nathan had 11 D1 college scholarship offers, full rides, and not one of those were colleges that he had applied to. So we're like, how in the world did you find Nathan? I mean, these are not even in California, most of them. So it's like, where in the world? What it came down to is someone knew someone who knew someone who talked about Nathan, who saw how he was on the field. You would be amazed how many people are sitting in the stands of whatever sporting event your child is at, no other reason than to watch your child. They're not going to talk to your child. They're not going to talk to you. They're not going to talk to the coach. They're looking, how are mom and dad doing? Are mom and dad out of control in the stands? Are they up there trying to coach their child when they should be just supporting their child? The coach on the field has got it taken care of. is the child. How is that young athlete? Are they humble? Are they prideful? Are they cocky when they cross the finish line? How are they treating the officials? How are they treating, are they being respectful? Are they, hi, how's your day? They're watching your child. And that was something that was really humbling me to realize, because I didn't know all these people were out watching. Some of them had been watching my Nathan for years.
Mm-hmm.
And they are picked because they live in that area. So these schools were outside of California, some of them, or at least the coaches were outside the area. And obviously they can't go to every possible recruit's home or school to watch them compete, but they have graduates. They have people like you who know the sport,
Mm-hmm.
know what to look for, and they send them to watch your child compete. Your child needs to be the best person they can be, their fullest potential. That's what's important.
Wow. And that's the first time I've ever heard that, these coaches in college basically making use of the network that way. Normally you just hear about them talking to other coaches. It didn't even occur to me that, there's other graduates in that area that can be serving as eyes and ears for the program. That's pretty cool.
And they're writing it up and they're sending reports to the colleges. And I only know that because when coaches came to our house, they would tell us what they learned. And I was like, whoa.
Oh, okay. That's something that's pretty cool. All right. So thinking about Nathan and his personality, okay, is there a particular quality that he has, a quality trait, whatever you want to call it, that points directly to you? In other words, if people who know you and then they see Nathan for the first time, or they engage with him for the first time, and within 5 minutes they say, yeah, that's your son. what would that be?
I would say Nathan is really good at organizing stuff. He can take chaos and put it in a structure. Along the way, he encourages those on his team. He figures out how to be the best way to utilize the strengths that they've got. He seems to naturally lead in a way that people want to follow him. And I'm not saying that just because he's my kid. I see it in the Sea Cadets. He made it up to Chief Petty Officer. I see it in the sports that he was doing, and just day to day in the classroom. I'm a project manager. I organize things. I put things in place. I take chaos and I make it, structured. And that's where I think people see similarities between the two of us. Maybe we're just wired the same way. Maybe it's because I worked full time while he was growing up from home,
mm-hmm.
and he saw me interacting and doing that in my job every day. But he's definitely similar to me in that regard.
Right. Okay. All right. Good enough. As we wind things down, is there anything that I haven't asked that you'd like to share with regards to either Nathan or the whole Academy experience?
I would say that the Naval Academy is actually a blessing. It's a blessing in many ways. It's not that you get woohoo a free education. That's amazing in itself. But it's the friendships formed during plebe summer, the many hours of practices, the in the classroom, the marching drills. I went to college. I know what it's like. I've had grown kids that have gone to college. It's not the same as at the Naval Academy. That sense of community, that healthy dependence on each other, that is not about me. It's we. How do we together be successful? It's never the I, it's the we. And that's what I've really seen as being amazing about that. The way that the mids, they support each other. I mean, I listen to the interviews of the kids. It's never about, oh, I did this and I did that. It's like, this coach helped me. That kid did that block. It's about the collective we. And I think that's really, really cool. When I think about these kids that are growing up, our younger generation, and should they even go to the academy or what should they do? It's really about your passion, right? Anyone who's been a parent or has seen someone unsuccessful in a job or successful in a job, what's the difference? It's because they like what they do. What is your passion? We were all wired differently. I have friends that are teachers and nurses. I could not do their job. Could not. They don't want to do my job. But we all three can do our jobs very well. It's not about the 4-year degree. It's figuring out what is your passion, get trained in it, get certified, because heaven forbid you can apply for a job that's not online. So you got to be able to check boxes. But you got to reinforce what is worthy to you. Because if you like what you're doing, it doesn't matter if you're mopping the floors, you're driving a truck, you're going to the moon. Every role is valuable. Every person is unique. The Naval Academy is giving those young men and women that are seeking the kinds of training, seeking the kinds of future careers that can be given in the Naval Academy and beyond, they're getting that through that. It may not be for everybody, but if what you want to do matches with what the Naval Academy is doing, it's a great fit.
Yeah. And, I can tell you that that's probably the one thing I value the most out of my time there. I mean, I finished and I went on to fly helicopters for a few years. I did 9 years on active duty and then went on to do some other things. But the thing that I always take away from it is just those close connections. I mean, just a few months ago, one of the guys in my company, he lives in Kansas with his wife. I mean, we graduated and then that probably went 25 years without seeing him. He came back to the 25-year reunion, right? And then I saw him, 4 years ago. But then out of the blue, and just a few months ago, my wife and I were preparing for a short trip to go watch a tennis tournament in California. And he emails me and says, hey, we're going to be in Phoenix for spring training in March. You're going to be around. And I'm thinking, okay, I hope he's not here between March 9th and 11th because that's the time we're going to be gone. And luckily, they were showing up the previous weekend. So we had a chance to get together. And it's just like, you never skip a beat. You sit down, you just jump right back into the conversations like you were still in school. And to me, that's priceless. There's no two ways about that. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with us. Okay, I do have one more question for you, Maura, before I let you go. And that has to do with which sport Nathan was originally recruited for. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Recruiting was interesting coming to the college. If Nathan went to the college, he wanted to do track. But there was some stuff that happened in the recruiting process, and he ended up being the lead recruiter was football. So Ken Niumatalolo doesn't let kids typically double sport. You're football, you're football, you're football. And when we were out there for our official visit, I asked why. I said, Nathan's kind of decent in track. I think he could do well representing the Naval Academy as a track athlete. But he didn't know about Nathan's track background. And so he did some research and he came back and he goes, I'm going to let Nathan do 2 sports. Now there's one other football player that's also a lacrosse player that he's
Xavier
allowed
Arline.
that as well.
Yeah.
And so while we were there on our official visit, we actually got pulled aside. We got taken over to the indoor track and met Coach Cook for the first time. And he's like, you need to understand this doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Nathan is first dedicated to football. That's the agreement we have. While he's in football, he's not allowed to do any track training. When he's in track, they can't drag him over to football. So that's kind of how the balance is. The one caveat is the wide receiver group typically has lunch together during the school day, and they go over plays. They talk about route running and things like that. So Nathan still has to give lunch to football for the wide receivers, and he doesn't do it begrudgingly. He loves the opportunity to stay connected. So this actually is his first week back to football. Actually, last week. Last Monday was the first time since December he has started training with the football team. Okay.
All right. Fair enough. Yeah. So that'll be kind of interesting to see how things play out there as well. Anyway, thanks for sharing that little bit of insight. I really appreciate it. Okay. That about wraps things up. And Maura, I'm looking forward to watching Nathan compete in both sports over the next few years. And once again, thanks for the visit.
Thank you for your time. This was really fun. And thank you for the chance to continue to promote the Navy athletes. They're pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. All right. Thanks, Maura. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Okay. We are ready to close out this episode with our question of the day. And that is coming up next. All right, the last item on our list of things to do in this episode is our question of the day. Let's go ahead and check on the results of the one from our last show, though. So remember, we had talked about Braden Presser's 6th place finish in the javelin, and that did qualify him as a first-team All-American. Now, the question was, in what year did a midshipman actually win an NCAA national championship in outdoor track and field? And the years that you were given were A, 1945, B, 1982, C, 1996, and D, 2004. So let's go ahead and see what you guys selected. There were 69% of you who chose 1945, 21% picked 1982, 1996 and 2004 had 1% each, and my classmate Tom Nolan added 1984 in a show of class support, and that got 8% of the votes. The correct answer is actually 1945, and in fact the Mids won the NCAA championship with 2 individual champions. Those were William Cash in the 440 and John Van Velser in the 100-yard dash. Leo Williams from the class of 83 won a national championship outdoors in the high jump, but that was in 1981, not 1982. Williams also won back-to-back indoor championships in 81 and 82. And by the way, he totally dominated the high jump when he was at the academy. If you go back and look at the top 10 performances indoors, he owns all of them. And the program record, by the way, is 7 feet 6 inches. And that's pretty much true for the outdoor high jump as well. Williams had the top 9 heights there, including the record at 7'6", and he's tied for the 10th best. He was also an alternate on the 1984 Olympic team. Now, here's our question of the day for this episode. We mentioned earlier that Braden Presser set a school record in the javelin at the NCAA championships with a throw of 249 feet 4 inches. How many of the top 10 performances in the event does he own? Is it A, 6, B, 7, C, 8, or D, 9? You guys can take some time to think about that one and give me your answer on the Navy Sports Nation group Facebook page. I'll have that posted by the end of the day. That's going to do it for this edition of Navy Sports Central. Thank you all so much for joining us. Now, if you like what you've heard, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, and remember to spread the word to all the other Navy fans out there. Thanks again to Maura Kent for joining me today to help us get to know a little bit more about her son, Nathan. He is a terrific two-sport athlete in track and football and has made a pretty big impact in just his first year. We have been getting a great response to our question of the day, so if you want to jump in on that, just go to the Navy Sports Nation group Facebook page. I will go ahead and pin it to the top so you won't miss it. And just a quick reminder, the views expressed on Navy Sports Central are my own and do not reflect those of the U.S. Naval Academy or Navy Athletics. By the way, the music used in Navy Sports Central comes to you courtesy of Audio Jungle. This is a great site for purchasing the rights to use music from thousands of artists around the world, and those we feature in the podcast will be credited in our show notes. Talk to you soon, everybody. Until next time, this is Carl Darden. Go Navy, beat Army.